Lost in Wyoming. Found in California. One dog walked 1,000 miles home. They said it was impossible. But this Border Collie proved that nothing could stop him from finding his family. The wagon train left Independence, Missouri in April 1883. William and his family joined 50 other pioneers heading west. They were searching for a better life in California. William's wife Rachel sat beside him on the wagon. Their 2 children rode in the back under canvas. And trotting faithfully beside the wagon was Dusty, their Border Collie. Dusty had been with the family for 5 years now. The red and white dog was intelligent and loyal always. Dusty helped herd the oxen and kept watch at night. The children loved Dusty more than anything they owned. The dog slept beside their wagon, protecting them every night. The journey was long, but the family had hope. California promised land, opportunity, and a fresh start for everyone. Dusty seemed to sense the importance of this journey. He stayed close to the wagon, never wandering far. 3 months into the journey, they reached Wyoming Territory successfully. The landscape was beautiful, but harsh and unforgiving to travelers. Mountains loomed ahead, and rivers ran swift with snowmelt. The wagon master warned everyone about the difficult terrain ahead. "Stay close to the train," he ordered the gathered families. "Don't let children or animals wander off alone ever." William nodded while holding Rachel's hand tightly with concern. Dusty sat alert beside the wagon, watching the surrounding wilderness. That evening, they camped near a river for water supplies. The children played by the wagon while Rachel cooked dinner. Dusty lay nearby watching the children protectively, as he always did. William went to gather firewood from the nearby forest. "Watch the children," William told Rachel before leaving the camp. Rachel nodded while stirring the pot over the fire carefully. Suddenly, a commotion erupted across the camp with shouts and panic. A herd of wild horses stampeded through the camp unexpectedly. Wagons rocked, people screamed, animals scattered in every direction frantically. Dusty jumped up, barking at the thundering horses approaching them. Rachel grabbed the children, pulling them under the wagon quickly. The horses rushed past, missing the wagon by feet only. But in the chaos, the oxen broke free, terrified. They ran toward the river, dragging their yokes and chains. Dusty's herding instincts kicked in immediately, without thinking or hesitating. He chased after the oxen, trying to turn them back. "Dusty, no!" Rachel screamed after the dog desperately and fearfully. But Dusty was already gone, racing after the panicked oxen. The dog disappeared into the trees, following the animals downstream rapidly. William returned to find the camp in chaos completely. "Where's Dusty?" William asked, while looking around frantically for their dog. Rachel pointed toward the river with tears in her eyes. "He chased the oxen," she said, with her voice breaking. "I couldn't stop him in time." William grabbed a rope and ran toward the river immediately. He called Dusty's name over and over, desperately into the darkness. No bark answered back from anywhere in the surrounding forest. The oxen had been found a mile downstream, exhausted and stopped. But Dusty was nowhere to be seen in the area. William searched for hours, calling the dog's name until dark. The wagon master finally stopped him with a firm hand. "We leave at dawn," he said seriously and without emotion. "We can't wait for a dog to return." William's heart broke at those cold words spoken to him. "He's family," William protested with desperation clear in his voice. The wagon master shook his head with sympathy but firmness. "So are the 50 families depending on this train schedule," he replied. "I'm sorry, but we can't delay the entire journey." That night, William and Rachel held their crying children tightly. "Dusty will come back," the little girl sobbed into her mother. Rachel couldn't answer because she didn't believe it herself anymore. The next morning, the wagon train prepared to leave early. William walked to the edge of camp calling for Dusty. No red and white dog appeared from the forest. Rachel touched William's shoulder gently, but sadly, with understanding showing. "We have to go," she whispered, with her own tears. William nodded, unable to speak through the grief choking him. The wagon train rolled forward, leaving the campsite behind them. The children cried, watching the forest disappear into the distance. Dusty had chased the oxen 5 miles downstream during stampede. The terrain was rough, with fallen logs and thick brush. Dusty finally stopped the oxen near a rocky area. But when Dusty turned to go back, he was lost. The forest looked the same in every direction around him. Dusty's excellent nose caught the faint scent of camp. He started walking back, following the scent trail carefully and precisely. But a sudden rainstorm washed the scent away completely and totally. Dusty stood in the rain, confused for the first time. He barked, hoping William would hear and come for him. Only rain and wind answered his desperate calls into emptiness. When the rain stopped, Dusty tried again to find camp. He walked for hours but couldn't find the right direction. By evening, Dusty realized the terrible truth facing him completely. The wagon train had left without him, behind in wilderness. Dusty was alone in Wyoming Territory, hundreds of miles from home. The intelligent Border Collie sat down and thought about his situation. He couldn't smell the wagon train anymore after the rain. But Dusty remembered something important from the journey taken here. They had been traveling west constantly toward the setting sun. California was west, where his family was heading to settle. Dusty looked at the sun setting in the western sky. His family was somewhere in that direction ahead of him. Dusty made a decision, with his intelligent mind working clearly. He would walk west until he found them again. It didn't matter how far or how long it took. Dusty started walking toward the sunset with determination, showing clearly. 1,000 miles of wilderness lay between him and California. Mountains, deserts, rivers, and dangers he couldn't imagine yet. But Dusty didn't know about the impossible distance ahead. He only knew his family was west, somewhere waiting. And nothing would stop him from reaching them eventually, somehow. Dusty walked west for 3 days straight without stopping much. His red and white coat became dusty and matted quickly. The Wyoming wilderness was harsh and unforgiving to a lone dog. Dusty hunted rabbits and prairie dogs to survive each day. He drank from streams and small creeks found along the way. At night, Dusty slept under bushes or in rocky outcrops. He dreamed of the children and woke whining their names. Every morning, Dusty stood and continued walking west, faithfully toward them. The Border Collie's intelligence helped him survive the journey's challenges. He learned to avoid predators by hiding when necessary quickly. He found the best routes through difficult terrain efficiently and smartly. Dusty's herding dog stamina was bred for exactly this endurance. After 2 weeks, Dusty crossed into Idaho Territory, heading west. The landscape changed from forests to high desert plains gradually. Water became scarce in the Idaho desert, stretching endlessly ahead. Dusty's tongue hung constantly from thirst in the brutal heat. He found a small water hole one afternoon, barely alive. Other animals had found it too, creating a dangerous situation. A pack of coyotes appeared at the waterhole suddenly. 5 coyotes circled Dusty with hungry eyes, watching him carefully. Dusty was outnumbered, but he was also desperate for water. He stood his ground, barking sharply at the coyotes in warning. The largest coyote stepped forward, testing Dusty's courage and resolve. Dusty lunged forward, snapping his jaws at the coyote aggressively. The coyote jumped back, surprised by the small dog's fierceness. Dusty barked again, louder and more aggressive than before now. The coyotes hesitated, uncertain about this determined border collie before them. Finally, they retreated into the desert, seeking easier prey elsewhere. Dusty drank deeply from the waterhole, gratefully and thankfully. He rested there for several hours, regaining his strength slowly. Then Dusty continued west through the Idaho desert, relentlessly forward. After a month of walking, Dusty reached the Snake River. The river was wide and the current was strong. Dusty had crossed rivers before, but never alone like this. He walked along the bank, searching for a safe crossing. Finally, Dusty found a shallow area with rocks visible above water. He stepped into the cold water, carefully testing each step. The current pulled at his legs, trying to sweep him. Dusty fought against the water, using all his strength available. Halfway across, Dusty's paw slipped on a mossy rock. He went under the water briefly before surfacing, gasping desperately. Dusty paddled hard toward the far bank ahead of him. His muscles screamed with exhaustion from the effort required. Finally, Dusty reached the far bank and dragged himself out. He collapsed on the muddy shore, coughing up water weakly. For an hour, Dusty lay there too exhausted to move. But then he thought of the children's faces and stood. Dusty shook the water from his coat and kept walking. Nothing would stop him from reaching his family, eventually, somehow. After 6 weeks of walking, Dusty entered Oregon Territory successfully. He had covered over 400 miles already by himself. Dusty's body was lean and hardened from the constant travel. His paws were tough as leather from endless walking daily. But Dusty's spirit remained unbroken and determined as ever before. One evening, Dusty encountered a homesteader family in Oregon. A woman saw Dusty approaching and called her husband immediately. "Look, a dog," she said, pointing at Dusty cautiously and curiously. The man grabbed his rifle, unsure if the dog was wild. Dusty stopped at a safe distance, watching them carefully and intelligently. He was exhausted and hungry, desperately needing help from someone. The woman saw the intelligence in Dusty's amber eyes clearly. "He's not wild," she told her husband gently and firmly. "He's lost." The woman put down a bowl of food scraps. Dusty approached cautiously and ate gratefully from the offered bowl. The family let Dusty rest in their barn that night. Dusty slept deeply for the first time in weeks properly. In the morning, the woman tried to keep Dusty there. "Stay with us," she said while petting his head gently. But Dusty barked at the western horizon with clear intent. "He's going somewhere. the man observed, watching Dusty's behavior carefully. The woman gave Dusty dried meat and water for travel. Dusty accepted the gifts, then immediately headed west again. "I hope he finds what he's looking for," the woman whispered. Dusty continued through Oregon toward the California border ahead somewhere. The Cascade Mountains loomed before him like massive walls blocking. Dusty had never seen mountains this size before in life. But his family was on the other side somewhere, waiting. Dusty started climbing into the mountains without hesitation or fear. The air grew thinner and colder with each mile upward. Snow appeared on the ground even in summer heat below. Dusty's breathing came harder in the thin mountain air. He climbed steep trails, carefully placing each paw deliberately forward. At night, temperatures dropped below freezing in the mountains. Dusty's thick coat protected him, but he still shivered. He found caves for shelter when possible during the nights. Food was scarce in the high mountains for hunting game. Dusty ate whatever he could find to survive each day. Berries, roots, small animals, anything that provided energy for walking. After 2 months of walking, Dusty reached the highest pass. He could see California's valleys spreading below him, finally ahead. Dusty barked once triumphantly at his success reaching this point. Then he started descending the western slope toward California below. The wagon train had reached Sacramento Valley 3 weeks earlier. William's family had claimed land and started building their homestead. But the family was not complete without Dusty there with them. The children asked about Dusty every single day without fail. "Is Dusty coming?" the little girl asked every morning hopefully. Rachel's heart broke, answering the same way each time, sadly. "I don't know, sweetheart," she would say with tears forming. William had given up hope that Dusty survived the wilderness. It had been 2 months since they lost him back in Wyoming. Dusty descended from the Cascade Mountains into Northern California Territory. The valleys were green and beautiful after months of harsh wilderness. Dusty's red and white coat was faded from sun exposure. He was thinner, but his muscles were strong and lean. Dusty had walked nearly 800 miles in 2 months, but he still had 200 miles to reach Sacramento. The Border Collie's determination had never wavered once during the journey. Every day he woke and walked west toward his family. Dusty crossed through Northern California, following rivers south toward Sacramento. He avoided towns and settlements, preferring to travel alone safely. One afternoon, Dusty caught a familiar scent on the wind. It was faint but unmistakable to his excellent nose, completely. Oxen! The same oxen from the wagon train weeks ago. Dusty's heart raced with hope flooding through him suddenly. He followed the scent west with renewed energy and purpose. The scent led Dusty to a ranch where wagon train oxen grazed. The wagon master had sold them here after reaching California. Dusty recognized the animals immediately from traveling with them for months. But the oxen couldn't tell Dusty where his family went. Dusty sat outside the ranch fence, watching the oxen, desperately hoping. A rancher saw Dusty and approached with curiosity showing on his face. "You look lost, boy," the rancher said gently to Dusty. Dusty barked and looked west, then back at the rancher. The rancher didn't understand what Dusty was trying to communicate clearly. "You hungry?" the rancher asked while offering food to the dog. Dusty ate gratefully, but his eyes kept looking west constantly. After eating, Dusty stood and prepared to leave the ranch. "You can stay here," the rancher called after Dusty kindly. But Dusty was already walking west again, toward his family. Dusty reached the outskirts of Sacramento after 3 more days walking. The settlement was growing rapidly, with new pioneers arriving daily. Dusty walked through the streets, searching for his family's scent. Hundreds of people and wagons made finding them nearly impossible. Dusty's nose worked overtime, processing all the scents around him. Then, on a dusty side street, Dusty caught it suddenly. William's scent. Faint, but definitely William's familiar smell he knew so well. Dusty followed the scent through the settlement, frantically and desperately now. The scent led away from town, toward the homestead lands. Dusty ran now instead of walking, with excitement building inside. After 2 months and nearly 1,000 miles walked alone, Dusty was close to his family, finally within reach now. The scent grew stronger with each step forward he took. Dusty's amber eyes scanned the landscape ahead, searching for them. Then, Dusty saw it in the distance ahead of him. A half-built cabin on a hillside overlooking the valley below. William's wagon sat outside the cabin, still recognizable to Dusty. Dusty barked loudly, running at full speed toward the cabin. Inside the cabin, Rachel was cooking dinner for the family. The children played on the floor with wooden toys William made. William was outside, working on the cabin's roof above them. "Mama, I miss Dusty," the little girl said sadly once again. Rachel knelt down, hugging our daughter tightly with shared sadness. "I know, sweetheart," Rachel whispered. "I miss him too, very much." Suddenly, they heard barking outside the cabin from somewhere close. William stopped hammering on the roof and listened carefully to sound. The barking came closer, frantic and urgent sounding from a dog. "That sounds like," William said, but couldn't finish the impossible thought. The children ran to the cabin door, looking outside excitedly. "Dusty!" the little girl screamed with pure joy flooding her. Racing toward the cabin was a dusty, thin red and white Border Collie. It was Dusty, unmistakably their beloved dog returning to them. "Dusty!" William shouted, jumping down from the roof, immediately landing hard. Rachel and the children ran outside, crying and laughing simultaneously together. Dusty reached them and jumped up, licking faces frantically with joy. The children fell to the ground, hugging Dusty tightly, sobbing happily. William knelt down with tears streaming down his weathered face freely. "You came back," he whispered, in amazement and disbelief combined. "You actually found us across 1,000 miles." Dusty barked and wagged his tail while pressing against William. Rachel hugged Dusty, crying into his dusty red and white fur. "How is this possible?" she asked through her happy tears. William looked at Dusty's worn paws and lean body, understanding everything. "He walked," William said with awe in his voice clearly. "He walked the entire way from Wyoming to California alone." The family sat together on the ground with Dusty in the middle. They couldn't stop touching him, making sure he was really there. Dusty licked each face gently, acknowledging his family's love for him. That night, Rachel fed Dusty the best meal she could prepare. The dog ate slowly, exhausted from his incredible journey finally completed. William examined Dusty's paws, seeing the calluses and scars from walking. 1,000 miles! William said, shaking his head in wonder repeatedly. Through mountains, deserts, rivers, and wilderness alone. Rachel looked at Dusty with tears still streaming down her face. "He never gave up on finding us," she said with emotion. The children curled up with Dusty on a blanket that evening. Dusty lay between them, exactly where he belonged, always perfectly. He was home at last after the impossible journey was complete. William told everyone in Sacramento about Dusty's journey back to them. The story spread throughout California, quickly and widely among settlers. A border collie who had walked 1,000 miles to find his family, who had crossed rivers, mountains, and deserts alone without giving up, who had proven that loyalty and determination could overcome any distance. Dusty became famous throughout the Sacramento Valley immediately after this. But to William's family, Dusty was simply Dusty, their beloved companion, the dog who had walked through hell to come home. William built Dusty a special bed inside the cabin near the fireplace. The dog would never sleep outside again after what he endured. Every evening, the family sat together with Dusty between them. They would stroke his red and white fur, grateful for his return. "You're the best dog in the world," the little girl would whisper. Dusty's tail would wag gently, acknowledging her love for him. Months passed, and Dusty regained his healthy weight from good food. But the calluses on his paws remained as permanent reminders forever. William would look at those paws sometimes with wonder and gratitude. They were proof of Dusty's incredible journey home to them, proof of loyalty that transcended impossible distances traveled alone, proof that some bonds could never be broken by separation. Years later, when Dusty passed peacefully in his sleep one night, William buried him on the hillside overlooking their valley home. He placed a marker with words carved carefully into the wood. "Dusty, the dog who walked 1,000 miles home." And in Sacramento Valley, the story of Dusty lived on forever, told to children and grandchildren for generations after this happened, about a border collie who proved that love could guide you home, no matter how far, no matter how impossible the journey seemed. Dusty had walked west, following the sunset every single day, never giving up, never stopping, never doubting he would find them. And in the end, love and determination had brought him home, to the family who never stopped hoping he would return, to the children who asked about him every day faithfully, to William and Rachel who had lost hope but never forgot. Dusty had found his way across 1,000 miles of wilderness, because some dogs don't just find their way home geographically. They find their way home through love, memory, and unbreakable loyalty. That was Dusty's gift to his family and his legacy, the proof that nothing, not distance, not wilderness, not time, could separate those meant to be together forever, always.